Something is shifting beneath the surface of British politics, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the slow and unmistakable weight of a tectonic plate moving beneath your feet, and by the time most people notice, the landscape will already have changed forever.
I think overall what's happened is a truly historic shift in British politics. We've been so used to thinking about politics in terms of left and right, and yet what Reform are able to do is to win in areas that have always been conservative, but equally, we're proving in a big way, we can win in areas that Labour have dominated, frankly, since the end of World War I.
Happy you found us. For more analysis, don't forget to subscribe. It takes a millisecond and it's free. The name Andy Burnham has been circulating in Westminster corridors with a frequency that makes senior Labour figures visibly uncomfortable, not because he is loud or aggressive, but because he is something far more dangerous to a sitting Prime Minister. He is credible, he is popular, and he is moving. The National Executive Committee's decision to clear Burnham for selection in the Makerfield by-election is not on its surface a dramatic moment. It is a procedural vote, a bureaucratic green light. But in politics, the bureaucratic is almost always the biographical, and what has just been authorised is not merely a candidacy, it is the beginning of a reckoning. Josh Simons stepping aside as MP to make way for Burnham's return to Parliament is the kind of choreographed political manoeuvre that only happens when serious people are making serious plans, and the question that nobody in Westminster is asking out loud, but everyone is thinking, is what exactly Burnham intends to do once he has a seat in the House of Commons again. Makerfield is a constituency that once felt like safe ground for Labour, the kind of seat where the party could deploy a candidate and expect the result to follow like clockwork. But the political geography of England has been redrawn in the past 18 months with a speed and ferocity that has left many in the party gasping for orientation. Reform UK swept every council ward in Makerfield during this month's local elections, capturing roughly half the vote, while Labour limped to just over a quarter, numbers that, in any honest political assessment, represent not a warning sign but a verdict. The 2024 general election gave Josh Simons a majority of just 5,399 over Reform, a margin that once seemed manageable and now looks like a relic of a different era entirely, a snapshot of a moment before the polling collapse that has hollowed out Labour's commanding position and handed the momentum almost entirely to Nigel Farage's movement. And yet, and this is where the story becomes genuinely fascinating, Andy Burnham may be the one figure capable of reversing that arithmetic through sheer force of personal political gravity. Ipsos polling puts Burnham's net favourability rating in the Northwest at positive 24%, a number that towers above every party leader and above the Labour Party itself, which tells you something profound about the difference between institutional loyalty and earned trust, and why the former is crumbling while the latter remains remarkably resilient. A Survation forecast made it explicit. With Burnham as the candidate, Labour is more likely to hold Makerfield. Without him, Reform is likely to take it. That single data point is a kind of political Rorschach test, and depending on how you read it, it either speaks to Burnham's exceptional individual appeal or to Labour's catastrophic structural weakness, and the uncomfortable truth is that it speaks to both simultaneously. Wes Streeting, who resigned as Health Secretary this week in a move that sent shockwaves through Westminster while deliberately stopping short of triggering a formal leadership contest, has publicly backed Burnham's by-election bid, saying the party needs its best players on the pitch, a line that sounds like support but carries within it the quiet implication that the current arrangement is not deploying those players effectively. Streeting's allies have confirmed he would stand in any future leadership race, and his resignation letter reportedly called for the broadest possible field of candidates, language that is polished and careful and almost certainly not accidental. The architecture of a challenge is being assembled in plain sight, piece by piece, with a patience that suggests those involved understand that the moment matters as much as the movement. Keir Starmer, for his part, has not flinched publicly. Downing Street has maintained with consistent firmness that the Prime Minister would contest any leadership challenge, that he is not going anywhere, that he intends to govern and to fight, and those who know him describe a man who does not walk away from confrontation but meets it with a methodical composure that his critics frequently mistake for detachment. But an unnamed cabinet minister, in a disclosure to the Telegraph that landed with considerable force, described Starmer in private as far less categorical, a leader keeping all options open. And that gap between the public posture and the private reality is, in politics, exactly where the most consequential decisions are made. What is notable is not that Starmer faces pressure, every Prime Minister faces pressure, but that he is responding to it through the language of action rather than retreat. Reports emerged this week that Starmer could announce an £18 billion uplift to defence spending as early as next week, a substantial and long-anticipated commitment that Defence Secretary John Healey has been privately pushing for with increasing urgency, driven by a clear-eyed assessment of the rising threats facing the United Kingdom in an era of European instability and great power competition. The Defence Investment Plan, long delayed and closely watched by allies and adversaries alike, represents something more than a budget line. It represents a statement of intent, a signal that Britain, under Starmer, is prepared to shoulder the weight of its strategic responsibilities at a moment when that willingness is neither guaranteed nor taken for granted. In the calculus of a Prime Minister fighting to stabilise his premiership, there is a certain strategic logic to anchoring your political identity in national security, in the long view, in the kind of decisions that transcend the daily turbulence of parliamentary politics and speak instead to the country's place in the world. It is the move of a leader who understands that the ground beneath him is shifting and is chosen to plant his flag on terrain that is harder to attack, because whatever criticisms circulate about his domestic record, the argument for serious defence investment in this geopolitical moment is not easily dismissed. And yet, the by-election looms as a test that no amount of defence spending can fully neutralise. Because Makerfield is not a question of policy, it is a question of identity, of whether the Labour Party still speaks to the communities that built it, the northern towns and working-class constituencies where the party's roots run deepest and where Reform UK is now finding fertile soil. Burnham understands those communities in a way that is not performative but biographical, forged through years of political proximity and a genuine capacity to translate the anxieties of post-industrial England into something resembling a political language those communities recognise as their own. If he wins Makerfield, and the projections suggest he might, the story writes itself, and it is not a story that is comfortable for the man currently residing in Downing Street. The pressure on Starmer is not coming from one direction, but from several simultaneously. A restless party membership watching polling numbers that make grim reading, a reform surge that has turned comfortable majorities into genuine contests, resignations from the cabinet that carry the unmistakable scent of positioning, and now a figure of Burnham's stature stepping deliberately back onto the parliamentary stage. What makes this moment genuinely consequential is not that any single one of these pressures is fatal, it is that they are converging, feeding one another, creating a political environment in which the question of Labour's future leadership is no longer theoretical but operational, no longer whispered in back rooms but discussed, if cautiously, in the open. The decisions made in the coming weeks on defence, on the by-election, on who speaks and who stays silent, and who positions themselves for what comes next, will shape not just the fortunes of one political party, but the direction of a country navigating one of the most turbulent periods in its recent history. And the weight of that reality rests for now on the shoulders of a Prime Minister who knows that the margin for error has narrowed, that the room for manoeuvre is smaller than it was, and that the next move matters in ways that may not be fully understood until long after it is made.